Hey guys, welcome back to Baker Rebuilds. Today we're doing a fun little suspension project on my brother-in-law's Toyota, what is this thing?
Sequoia, 2016 Toyota Sequoia.
We're gonna be switching out the air ride because the module went bad.
Yeah, the computer stopped communicating with the air ride suspension, and apparently the computer itself is like $2 grand. So we found a swap out from Strut Masters.
Yep.
And so we're gonna be swapping it out to go old school with it, with the struts and not the air ride that was original.
And what did that run you, like 650, 700?
Yeah, it was like $500-600 bucks. I think it was 600 with tax type of thing, but it really wasn't too bad, and that's for all 4 components.
Heck yeah, save some money and we're gonna go all new suspension, so let's get into it. All right. Hey, it came with plastic.
Right there.
It loses it. It breaks apart.
There's some big lug nuts.
I mean, if you open it, I am. So I popped his hood because I was expecting to find kind of a typical coilover bolted up into strut tower type assembly, but that's not how his is. So let me show you the difference. Mine, as you can see, has these 3 bolts on top, and that's what bolts the coilover straight into the strut tower. That's how it works on a lot of vehicles, cars for sure. Popped his hood, and as you can see, there's no strut tower to be spoken of. So it's a little bit different assembly on this vehicle. The strut bolts down there into the wishbone and comes up into this bracket assembly right here. You can see the 4 bolts on top. So we got to take those 4 nuts off and undo this bolt at the bottom and work that strut out of here to get the new one in. So on the rear wheel, you can see this clip back here. That's going to be your first step to disconnect the old air ride. It just routes around here and comes to the top of the old strut on the rear, and that's to prevent it from communicating and to remove the part. You can see previously he was just resting right on his bump stop, so that's not preferred. Other than that, 19mm wrench and socket to remove this top strut bolt, and of course the bottom's a different size. Looks like 17mm should fit on the bottom of the strut. This one's just got a little bit of degradation to the bolt, a little bit of damage to the bolt, so it's struggling to fit, but a little bit of hammer persuasion should help us out right nice. Just like that. Freaking electrical plugs. If I can even get this in there. I want to grab a large flathead screwdriver out of my second drawer up. All right, we got that stupid plug unclipped. It's just 1 point that you have to depress that holds that part in. Once you do that, this part slips out. And now that that's done, we can undo the top there and the bottom, pull this strut right out. Oh, Hannah.
Do you need something to hold it?
Uh-huh. There it is.
Pry bar for the win.
What a stupid design. Finally got that bolt out. Now we should be able to pull this forward come off the bottom here and rear strut out.
Yay! So we have the air ride bag here that needs to come out. And to take this out, Strutmasters recommends taking out the air line that's connected here at the top, a clip that's located here at the top, and a 12mm bolt here at the bottom. So I will start with the 90-degree turn to get the air clip undone.
There's some rust on here, so I wonder if some stuff's a little bound up. I think we might as well just cut it right at the fitting. And worst case scenario, you can replace this like 8-inch line that's right from the module right here. So we ended up cutting this line right there. That's where your air is. You're supposed to be able to turn this plastic piece 90 degrees, reinsert it and detach the line. But ours just has a bit too much corrosion going on and stuff. So we cut it right at the edge of the fitting so that it can still be reused in case he ends up going back to the air suspension. But now that should afford us the ability to proceed on to the next steps. Got to remove this clip here. Take that out, and then we should be able to
take out the 12mm.
Loosen this 12mm on the bottom and rotate the bag, pulling the bottom out first and then the top. Got that 12mm bolt out. Well, yeah.
Is it loose?
No.
You're not counting that.
Woo! All right, guys, the next thing we're gonna do is undo this nut so that we can disconnect the rear sway bar, and hopefully that'll allow our wishbone assembly to drop a little bit lower, and that way we can fit our spring stuff in the rear and get our strut back in. The strut needs about 2 more inches of clearance. So we're using a 17mm ratcheting combination wrench, and a 6mm Allen key to hold the center, keep it still from spinning.
I didn't know.
So now we're going to use the floor jack to bring up the wishbone assembly a little bit so that we can take the tension off of the sway bar end link and get that out, risking less damage to it.
So if we had taken it off earlier in the process before we took off the airbag, would that have helped?
No, because the airbag had it pushed out, so it was tension on it the other way. All right.
All right, that's annoying.
All right, make sure you replace your 17mm bolt in the bottom once you got your strut in place. I'm just gonna start those threads for now, and then we're gonna replace our bolt and nut in the top of this one. Now we're gonna use our 19mm socket and 19mm combination wrench to get this top bolt and nut tightened. On that big old bolt, I just went to the top of my peak power on this one, which is rated for 250 foot-pounds. All right, for the rear spring, this is the bottom spring retainer. It's going to go into this hole, so this slanted inner piece just cups that part on the bottom of this suspension arm. And then the way you retain that is putting the small washer on first, then the larger panel washer, like so, and then the nut. So that's how this will go on the opposite side to retain that spring retainer. For the top spring retainer, this is going to go up through and up through this plate, which gives it much more stability over that greater surface area. And then this piece is actually keyed. You can see that this Green Lantern symbol looking thing is keys into the top of your area where your bag used to go. So that'll go above and keyed into the correct position, and then this will go up and tighten into that. And I'll probably use some blue Loctite just to ensure that this doesn't loosen over time. Oh, we need spring compressors. Before we go rent/buy whatever we end up needing to do or end up doing whatever, we'll dig into the front and make sure there's no unexpected surprises there. All right, so you have to use the hole in the top of this thing where the airbag came out from previously, the hole where the airline came out of previously, to apply pressure to that keyed part to keep it in its position while tightening in this top spring retainer. So a little bit of hunky-dory, but we're gonna figure it out. All right, guys, we have the bottom spring retainer installed and tightened. We had to use a 14 millimeter for the nut on the bottom and a 14 millimeter for socket for the bolt on top. The top one was a 19 millimeter, and then you have to make sure to get that piece in the keyed spot so that way you can tighten your bolt into it. You got that one tightened. You are going to need a spring compressor in order to get your spring compressed and in here. So before we go looking to rent or buying one of those, we're going to jump on the front end and see what all is required up there. So on the top of the front suspension, we're going to have to undo this electrical stuff. There we go. So that's unplugged, and I took it out of its retainer bracket there just in case that helps. We got to undo these 4 nuts on top of the strut and 1 bolt and nut at the bottom, and this whole coilover strut assembly will come out. I'm gonna try my new stuff because new stuff, double flex head ratcheting long wrenches. See how they do. Oh, so good. The $60 was worth it. Let's see if I can break it loose with one hand. Oh, of course, one's gonna be an issue. Oh, nope, still got on. I can angle that flex head down to get on there better. One-handed because the length. Leverage, baby! So on this front one, the bracket that's built into the vehicle has like a ridge on top. So with the flex head ratcheting wrench, as soon as I'd go to apply pressure, that ridge was pushing up against the wrench, and the end of the wrench was fighting the wheel well. So it was pulling the wrench off of the nut before I could do anything with it. So I'm gonna try a flex head ratchet with a 14 short millimeter socket to get up over that ridge and drop in on the nut, hopefully get us what we want. This isn't gonna fit either. Dang it. We're gonna have to come up with another solution. So I'm using 2 extensions to get up out of there, but this should, there we go. Oh, so for the bolt, the nut closest to the front and closest to the engine, that corner is actually really challenging to get on because of the amount of stuff in the way due to the electrical components from the old air ride. So, reaching it from the top, get this nut off. I can actually put my gun on there now. Now we're gonna loosen this bottom nut, threads. So right now I'm using a 4 millimeter Allen key to undo this bolt up here to pull the electric actuator off in order to drop the strut out. Use a 17 millimeter socket to get this tiny corroded piece of crap off so that we could loosen, there you go, so we could loosen this bracket from the top of the strut assembly. And that bracket is what held on our electrical actuator. This thing had 2 bolts. We used a T25 in each side to get those bolts out, and then unplugged it to get the actuator off. It actually sat like that on top, but get that off. 17mm socket to get the nut off the top of the bracket. And now as soon as we get that large bolt at the bottom of this coilover, we should be able to drop it out. So now we've had to undo the steering knuckle, and that's to allow the lower wishbone to drop low enough so that you can get this strut out. The other thing we need to undo is this 10mm bolt on the top of the upper wishbone to undo this bracket on the wheel speed sensor. And then I had to undo a 12mm bolt here to undo the bracket for the brake line. And this is all to create enough distance and make this so I can lift this up out of the way to get that strut out. It's getting a little wet out.
But we're dry, right at the edge.
Hey, this is the screw that came out of the top of the electrical housing. Dropped it and lost it, but there it is. This thing's just stiff because of the rubber bushings. But if I can get it to move enough,
This is what real work looks like, people. There it is. Dun, 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 we're putting the new one in.
Gosh, it's cold.
maybe. It's in.
Hooray! You redid it!
It's sort of in. It's not in the way of anything, but I don't think you need it.
It says out on this side, and it's the left one, so we're putting it on the driver's side.
Oh, there we go. Are you in now? Oh, you are in now. I put the 4 nuts back on top of the strut, so the strut is fully bolted back into place, but we haven't tightened anything yet. But before I go about tightening the strut, I'm going to bolt the steering knuckle back into place using the castle nut. And then I'm going to put the bolt back through the, what's that called? I'm going to put the bolt back through the sway bar end link. Which I might have to jack this up a little bit more to get the bolt in through the sway bar end link, but then we can tighten everything up and the front will actually be done on this side. That was tough. Whew. It's always a good part of the job where you have to finally switch the switch on the ratchet to start putting things back together. I like the tightening part. Now I'm putting the 10mm bolt and the 12mm bolt back in the brackets on top of the upper wishbone and the steering knuckle so that we can retain all our lines in place and know they're not going anywhere. If you have long-handled tools like I do, make sure to not apply too much pressure because both of these bolts are ones that I could easily snap. So be careful, move your hand up closer to the ratcheting mechanism to take some of that leverage off and it should be good. Should be pretty close to be able to put this sway bar end link bolt back in. Ugga for the win. Okay, bottom's tight. That's tight. We literally just need to tighten the 4 stupid nuts. Using these spring compressors to get this spring compressed so we can get it in. All right, guys, a few hours have passed. We've been to the store a few times, and we're doing something that you probably should not do. So I do not in any way, shape, or form advise that you or anyone at home participate in what you're about to see. So the zip tie is pretty much just stripped out and broke. Didn't work anyway. So I mean, we've got the spring in here. Now it's just a matter of getting our spring compressors out. They're longer than the spring while it's compressed, so it's posing some issues. Okay, we got the spring in using the spring compressors and twisting the, loosening the spring compressors by hand with box end wrenches. Heap loads are not fun. We just gotta throw that bolt back into the top of the strut since I took it out, and then the rear is done. So then it'll be on to the next side. Allen and my 17mm wrench to tighten my rear sway bar link back up. We tightened the top of the strut. We're gonna check the bottom of the strut here in a second, and with the spring in, it means the rear is done.
Did it! I put it back together.
And we'll still break out the torque wrench when we're done and go to the recommended 160. It's the second day. Everything's finished on this thing. Air ride out, regular suspension in. You can see she's sitting pretty level now. Not doing the Carolina squat in the back anymore. She's looking pretty good. If you have any questions, let me know. Drop them down below, and I'll see you in the next one.
There's a learning curve.
Yeah, I'm free falling. Can you hear me calling?